how are my personal insecurities going to ruin this relationship? Are my personal insecurities going to ruin this relationship?
Why is that the question we should ask ourselves?
Because we go into a relationship almost blind to our own wounds, and they resurface in the relationship, and we blame them for not providing the medication of a wound that existed before we met them. What I mean by that is, say, for example, you grew up financially insecure and you meet a partner who's actually really nice to you, but he might not be able to soothe all your financial insecurities. You immediately think he's not good enough. Or you go into a relationship being addicted to pornography, and then you meet a woman who's actually just at your right level, but you're so used to a hypersexualized, promiscuous woman that you find her boring. Or you go into a relationship not being able to communicate, and then you meet somebody else who's not also communicating, and you don't voice your concerns. So I would say, ask yourself, how are your insecurities going to ruin this relationship? And how do I create a buffer so that doesn't occur?
Once we take inventory of our personal insecurities, how can we then create a buffer going into a relationship so we don't self-sabotage?
We make sure that we are trying to heal those wounds without expecting that person to break their back to help us heal. So what I mean by that is, if I know I have an issue with jealousy, I'm trying to work on it, but at the same time, the person doesn't have to break their back to make sure I feel soothed. Okay, I pick consciously, I pick really well because I know that's a wound of mine, but I also learn to embrace and trust the process. Now, when you go in wounded and expect the person to provide you medication, but you don't even tell them what disease you have, we are then going to punish them for everything they do.
Why do we see so many women causing frustration in their relationship when they start dating a man based on a wound that someone else did,
Yeah.
not the man in front of them?
Because we've created a generation of narcissistic women. And what's happened is the rise of social media and the rise of online dating and the rise of feminism has taught women that they are not to blame for any poor choices. Every poor choice is glamorized. So if you want to be a sex worker, it's great. If you want to post in bikini pictures online, it's fine. If you want to be with it, every poor choice is glamorized, and every internal reflection is seen as gaslighting yourself. So they've even got terms for internal reflection to prevent it happening. And so what will happen is they are trained to not reflect on themselves because we've been told we've been oppressed for so many years. Now it's time to make sure we project. And so we don't take any accountability. And as a result, when we get into relationships, if we don't feel completely soothed all the time, he must be a narcissist. He must be a manipulator. He must be gaslighting. He, rather than I. And unfortunately, we've got an online market that caters to that wounded woman, that caters to that entitled woman, and caters to that narcissistic woman. And it's so wild to me that so many women talk about narcissism, but the society today is just catering to narcissistic women. If I post a picture online, a bikini picture online, there's nothing my husband can do that could compete with that level of accolade.
Tension.
We've created a culture that whenever there's a problem, there's a temporary solution that doesn't get rid of the root. So what I mean by that is, if there's a problem with intimacy for men and they're not getting women, there's pornography. If there's a problem of low self-esteem in women because they don't have meaning and purpose, they can post a few pictures online. We've created a way of solving problems that doesn't get rid of the root. So we're always seeking highs. And the problem with highs is they come with lows. So you end up having more problems, more low self-esteem, and then seeking bigger highs to get that kind of back to neutral state. So I think the problem comes with problems being solved by seeking highs and a real focus on kind of values that are very empty materialistic values. So you are a beautiful, high-value woman if you're really, really beautiful. And you're a high-value man now if you are really, really rich. But there's nothing to do with connection and intimacy that now gives us status. And I think that's come from social media mainly.
What happens when men and women never commit?
They find themselves unable to put somebody else's well-being above their own. So we're creating people who are entirely individualistic, deprived of responsibility, and unable to care and nurture for others because they're not putting somebody else's well-being above theirs. When you are unable to commit, essentially you wake up every single day saying, what do I want to do? What do I want to do today? And as nice and as freeing as that is, it deprives you of human responsibility. And in order to truly become something, we're designed to be responsible. We're designed to be valuable. We're designed to serve others. This is how we've evolved. So becoming completely individualistic leads to a sense of lonely narcissism.
Because what happens when the looks start to fade in women who've only put their value in their physical appearance? What happens?
Well, what happens is they end up with men who are equally shallow. Here's the thing, if I'm just a pretty face, I'm going to end up with a man who only likes pretty faces. Now, the reality is that man is so easily distracted with the next pretty face and the next 25-year-old and the next. So what will happen is you're in a constant competition with people you can't compete with for the rest of your life. And similarly, if I was somebody who just sold sex and I'm going to find a man who's addicted to sex. And men that are addicted to sex will always want novelty. You'll never be enough. So reality is when you create your identity on something so fragile, you attract somebody who's also very fragile, and then you end up in a lonely cycle, unfortunately.
Why do you think women cheat more than men?
Because they're in denial about the infidelity. When they cheat, they don't even label it as that. If a woman starts cheating,
What do they label it as?
They label it as my husband's no longer satisfying me. They won't even say I'm cheating. They'll say my husband isn't satisfied. They find a way to redirect and shift the terminology so that they are void of guilt.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do we know women are cheating more than men? What is it like? Is this public knowledge? Is it surveys? Or are you just hearing this from the people you're coaching?
The people I'm coaching, because firstly, you'll know, it's simple signs that you'll know. Firstly, when the guy, I always say infidelity is a result of men not being masculine and women not being feminine. And what I mean by this is if a woman is cheating, it's because she has a man that accepts unacceptable because he is unwilling to walk away when his boundaries are broken. So when women get cheated on, it's their lack of femininity. And when men get cheated on, it's their lack of masculinity. And people hate me for this because what they want to say is I was cheated on because my ex was a narcissist. But the infidelity is a dynamic. I'm not saying there are compulsive cheaters, but even in that process, you select that compulsive cheater. They show you the signs anyway, yeah? Like if I'm a woman without boundaries, I'll know because he comes home late, he's sloppy, I'll know something. But the reality is, and people always come for me and you're victim blaming, but no, this is not what we're doing here. The reality is people shouldn't cheat, but also thieves shouldn't steal. But I have to lock my doors. I have to. I have to protect myself. Similarly, people shouldn't cheat, but I have to lock my doors. I have to at least ensure I'm creating a dynamic that creates enough intimacy where they don't need to. If they then go on to, at least I know I did everything. But if I don't cover the basics, of course it's going to lead to
Right.
it. Yeah, of course.